All right. Air traffic controllers and nuclear power plant operators are not allowed to work exceptionally long hours because to do so would jeopardize lives. So when it says to do so, what are we referring to? Working exceptionally long hours, right? So they're saying air traffic. So, hey, air traffic controllers and nuclear power plants, you can't work really, really long hours because if we did that, you would jeopardize lives. Yet, so we have a point of contrast here. Yet, physicians in residency training are typically required to work 80-hour weeks. The aforementioned restrictions on working exceptionally long hours should also be applied to resident physicians since, what does since introduce? It's one of my favorite words on the LSAT.
The premise. I mean, the premise.
Premise. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Since, for, and because are all synonymous for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are engaged to work. So what is our conclusion here, Janelle?
I first read that the top part is the conclusion, air traffic controllers.
Does everybody agree with that or not so much? Laura, what do you think?
You said who? Oh.
Laura?
Yes.
Laura and I had a major main conclusion lesson today, so let's see if she gets it.
Laura struggles with main conclusion.
What was?
I was gonna say because to do so would jeopardize lives. Yeah, physicians. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the top part, air traffic
To do so would
controller.
jeopardize lives. Why? Because
Yeah.
no, it's not. I see her face.
I think I know the conclusion. I think.
All right, now what's our conclusion?
The aforementioned restrictions.
The Afro.
Sorry. I didn't even know I was on mute. I thought I was on mute.
You know.
The affirmation, restrictions on working exceptionally long hours should also be applied to residents' physicians. Yes, this is our conclusion.
Okay.
Let's figure out why, though. So this first sentence, air traffic controllers and nuclear power plants operators are not allowed to work exceptional hours because if they did, they would jeopardize lives. What part of the argument is this statement? Laura, what would you call this part of the argument?
SC.
What?
Associatory?
No, it's not a conclusion at all.
Oh my God, what is it? What's
It's background.
wrong with me right now? I don't function by this time.
Like it's 8 p.m. It's past my bedtime. No, it's just background information. Can we argue with this? Like, is the reason that this author wrote this statement is to tell us that air traffic controllers and nuclear power plants aren't allowed to work exceptionally long hours? No, that's not what we're arguing for. We're not offering evidence for like what are they, a claim or a conclusion, right? Is trying to convince us or persuade us of something. We're not persuading us of anything here. It's just stating something. And then we come in with this next sentence and we say, yet physicians in residency training are typically required to work 80-hour weeks. What part of the argument is this sentence?
Counterexample.
I would just call it, once again, it's just like a fact or background information, right?
I was going to say that too.
It's very straightforward in those two. But then we get to this next part, the aforementioned restrictions on working exceptionally long hours. So whatever it says, I don't even know how to pronounce this word, the aforementioned restrictions. What are we right here? We're referring to the restrictions that the air traffic controllers and the nuclear power plants have. And we're saying, hey, these restrictions of those people should also be applied to resident physicians. And when I read that, I want to know, well, why? There's no proof of that. But then they tell us this word since, which introduces a premise, which says they are too engaged to work in life, because they too are engaged to work I'm past my bedtime too. They too are engaged in work of a life or death nature.
Mhm.
So all of these statements and background informations are being used to support this, to get to the claim that physicians should have restrictions too. So we just did all that work and we haven't even gotten to the question yet. So that's fun, right? What kind of question is this one?
Necessary assumption.
Necessary assumption.
Yes, and how do we know that? Because of the word depends, right? We have the word.
Mhm.
So what is the goal of a necessary assumption question? What are we trying to find?
That makes it
Identify a
I say,
premise.
oh, sorry. Mhm.
Oh.
What is it now?
Identify a premise that back up the conclusion. Basically, the facts to match with the conclusion.
Kind of. You're like kind of. So there's the difference between, you're not wrong, but you're saying it very generically where it could be confusing.
Just what my tutor taught me. Sorry.
So no, you're not wrong. It's just so we have it what you're saying is true, but there's a little bit more to it. So whenever we have two kinds of assumption questions, we have sufficient assumption and we have necessary assumption.
Mhm.
If we're a sufficient assumption question, we're trying to find the unstated premise, like you said, that would guarantee this conclusion. 100% rock solid. It's like a super strengthened question.
Mhm.
But since this is a necessary assumption question, we're trying to find something that just has to be needed in order for this conclusion to have a chance. So it's just needed. So necessary, needed. So this is a bottom down question. So are we looking for a strong answer choice or a mild answer choice, Zach? For necessary assumption, strong or mild?
Mild.
Mild, yes. Mel, why are we looking for a mild answer?
Because we only need something to just fit in to validate the conclusion or the argument.
Not validate it.
But just to kind of like justify it in a way, right?
Nope,
Or make it right.
sufficient. Just something that has to be true in order for our conclusion to have a chance.
To work,
So
right.
if I said it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream.
Mhm.
Does it have to be true that all people like ice cream for my conclusion to be true? No. All is too strong, right?
Right.
All people liking ice cream is not needed. But is it needed that some people like ice cream for my conclusion to be true?
Mhm.
Yes, because some means at least one. Because if at least one person did not like ice cream, then my conclusion would fall apart, right? Like, why would you be getting ice cream if not at least one person likes ice cream?
Right.
Awesome. So we're looking for the answer choice that is needed in order for the aforementioned restrictions on working exceptionally long hours should also be applied to resident physicians. All right, so go ahead and put your answer in the chat. All right, so let's start with the one that nobody picked, A. Okay, let's start with E, actually. So, Miss Laura, so I like that you went weak. So, at least one resident physician would like to complete their residency training hours without working exceptionally long hours. Is this needed for our conclusion to be true?
No. It's not needed.
No, because do we care about if they like what they're doing? We don't care about their feelings. So it's not E. Let's dive into D. D, those who are not engaged in work that has life or death consequences should only sometimes be allowed to work exceptionally long hours. All right, Mel, why did you pick this answer?
I don't know. I felt like it was milder. So I should only, and I felt like it was kind of milder. I mean, because they're saying that the restrictions on working exceptionally long hours should also be applied. So I guess I just went to say, well, those who are not engaged on life death consequences should only sometimes.
Do we care about those that are not engaged in life or death?
I know we don't care. Yeah.
No, we don't care at all about them. We're like, we're talking about the doctors. It's not D. All right, let's go to C. The more hours one works in a week, the less satisfactorily one performs one's work. I think this is the most tempting wrong answer.
Because it doesn't really talk about like actually like residences. It just talks about, it's just more of like an ideology.
Well, because so this is saying the more work you do, the less of a job, the less, I don't even know how to speak English. You don't do as good of a job, right? So this means like on hour 1 of your work week is when you're at your best, and throughout the week you just go downhill. Does that have to be true for our conclusion to be true? No, because I just think what this is saying is like, hey, most people like, so say throughout the week you kind of are like this, but once you reach a certain amount of hours, then you start to significantly decline. It's not necessarily that the more hours you work, the less you do, right? So it's not C. Let's look at B. Resident physicians have a more direct effect on the lives of others than do air traffic controllers. Does it have to be true that resident physicians have a more direct effect on traffic controllers and nuclear power plants? No, because they all could have enough of an effect. Or they all, like, does it matter that resident physicians have more of effect? So let's say like, well, since resident physicians have more of effect on people than air traffic controllers and nuclear power plants, then air traffic control, like, they all have enough. Sorry, let me say it a different way. What if resident physicians did not have a more direct effect on people's lives than air traffic controllers? Couldn't the resident physicians still need to work a number of hours? Just because they're not like the almighty impact, couldn't they still need to be like have their hours restrained? Or do only those that have the absolute most impact, or only those that have to watch their hours? Can't maybe those that have the second most impact or the third most impact still need to watch and not work exceptionally long hours? Yeah, definitely, right? So I don't think anybody got this one right. The correct answer is A. Can anybody see why it's the correct answer?
I'm always tied between the correct and a wrong answer. I was tied between A and C.
Okay, do you see that first? Do you see why C is wrong?
I see now, but that's my thing with them. I'm always tied between the correct and the wrong.
These are the best questions for you to practice in blind review. So why is A correct? So if we negated this and we said there is a indispensable aspect of residency training that requires resident physicians to work exceptionally long hours, that would destroy our argument, because it's saying that there is a reason, or there's an important reason that they do work these long hours. So if there was an important reason, how can we say that they need to watch the number of hours they're working? So do we see why A is correct? So, no, yes, maybe, no. No, you still say no, Zach?
Because like in real English, you have to take that A out of there. Like just say there is no indispensable aspect. Like how am I supposed to know to like negate that? Like on the exam, I feel like
because that's what you do if you negate an answer choice, and it destroys the argument, that means without the negation, without negating it, it's needed. Because if we don't have this,
Mm.
if we don't have this, our argument falls apart. It has to be true, or it's necessary to be true, that there is no indispensable aspect that requires them to work long hours. That it's needed. There can't be any
So
other.
that's why it was mentioned. So because there's no aspect, that's why it was mentioned in the first place. That's why it was mentioned.
Yes.
I understand. I understand.
So when we negated it, it destroyed our argument. So since it negated, destroyed our argument, that means not negated is needed.
All right. Makes sense.